It's very likely we have a long time to wait for the next mainline game in the Legend of Zelda series, but fear not, as there are many great games out there, either inspired by or complement the Legend of Zelda. So these range from smaller indie titles to full-blown AAA releases, but each one taps into the magic Legend of Zelda first showed me years ago. Well, today I'd like to go through 7 recommendations for video games that are just like Zelda, and hopefully they're going to inspire you to try something new while we wait for the next game from Nintendo. Well, if you enjoyed Triforce Times, then you can get early access, exclusive content, shout-outs, and also access to our community Discord by becoming a channel member. So all you need to do is hit that join button down below for more information. Without further delay, let's dive right into those recommendations, and first of all, this is one of my favourites. It's Death's Door. So this one is an isometric Zelda-like with elements of the Souls genre as well, so plus you've got plenty of secrets to discover. You play as a small crow in Death's Door, working for the Reaper Commission, and you harvest souls of the living. Unfortunately though, you've been sent on a task to collect a particular soul. It's stolen from you, and you are led into the Undying Realm on a hunt to retrieve the stolen soul and reach Death's Door. And to unlock that famous door, you need 3 powerful souls, and therein starts your adventure. Well, combat in Death's Door feels very, very satisfying indeed. So our little crow can hit, dodge, and roll. Now, it's tricky to block incoming attacks, so combat is often about understanding the patterns of your enemies and moving out of the way accordingly. So as you progress through the game, you've got waves of enemies, they get tougher, and that adds to the fast-paced nature of the combat and improves the overall feel of the game. You know, Death's Door is a great package, the controls are really tight, the gameplay is fun, and it's varied, plus the game looks and sounds great too. The puzzles work really well and strike a really good balance of difficulty, and the only real drawback of the game is the incentive to go back and play it over and over again due to the lack of variety of loot, but otherwise this is definitely something you should try. Well, the developer on this one was Acid Nerve, and it was originally released on the 20th of July 2021. Well, next up we've got Hyper Light Drifter. So Hyper Light Drifter is a really interesting one to describe, as much of the delight in the game is figuring out the story, the narrative, and your place in the world for yourself. At the start of the game, you're given a sword, taught the basics, and then off you go on your adventure as you go against a series of very, very tough enemies. So it's similar looking to early Zelda games, but not in the fact you've got to identify a dungeon, go there and kill a boss. There's definitely more to it than that. So as well as taking out a boss, you've got 4 terminals which are located in their own mini dungeons, and they're off the beaten path of the main overworld area. So finding your way can get a little bit tricky early on, but once you get the hang of things, this game really starts to click, and you've got an element of wandering and discovering in Hyper Light Drifter, which I really, really loved, but it may not be to everyone's taste. Now, aside from the battles and the systems to get to grips with, there's plenty to mesmerize you in the game. The artwork and the audio design work so well together to create an atmospheric and magical experience. It took me far too long to get to Hyper Light Drifter, so definitely don't make the same mistake I did. Yes, it can be difficult, but the reward is great. I can almost guarantee you are going to enjoy your time with this game. Well, the developer is Heart Machine. It was originally released in March of 2016. Well, next up we've got Immortals Fenyx Rising, and this one is much more like modern Zelda games. So Immortals Fenyx Rising is an open world adventure RPG from Ubisoft, and this is really inspired by Breath of the Wild. It's an animated journey through ancient Greek mythology, so you've got really clear similarities between this and Breath of the Wild for sure. So Fenyx can climb and glide, much like Link. There's also some deeper systems at play here, including leveling up your weapons and your armor. So puzzles and battles, they're around every corner, as well as collectible items. So Fenyx can whip up a potion or two to help out with health, stamina, attack, and defense. So while the game may look similar to Breath of the Wild, the underlying systems and controls are much more similar to Assassin's Creed. So combat is very satisfying with an attack, you got a dodge and a parry, and when you defeat enemies you can pick up new themed armor which have their own stats and abilities. So you've got a skill tree as well, which is going to provide you with the ability to spec into different playstyles in the game. And Immortals Fenyx Rising is put together in a really nice narrative package set in ancient Greece, with our adventure being narrated by Zeus and Prometheus, and these two are pretty funny. And these gods are attempting to tell the ancient legends, and they're constantly going back and forth, bickering and arguing with one another, providing some comic relief as the game goes on. Well, next up, we've got Nobody Saves the World. So, Nobody Saves the World is an action RPG, and it feels quite similar to old school top-down Legend of Zelda games from the NES and the SNES era. So this one was released in early 2022, but I do recommend this game. It's got a combination of satisfying combat, a whole host of characters to embody, and you have to take down the corruption and ultimately save the world. We've got quests here that give us items to help us progress and unlock the road ahead, but each character also has a rating. So every character starts off as an F, and as you work your way up to S tier ratings for each character, and when we first start we only have a single move, but that opens up as we play and we get more moves, and they can be assigned to the 3 action buttons. Eventually, you get the option to unlock and swap abilities between characters, meaning you can craft a really good build with a single character or set of characters that you like. So it's a really neat system. Definitely recommend giving it a go. So this game looks simple on the surface, but underneath it must be really super complex. One of the great things about this game is how it teaches you in the first few hours of the game, so I didn't really feel overwhelmed or confused about how to control my party of players. Once you get it down, you're going to be switching up characters quickly, dishing out various types of damage, and having tens of enemies at your mercy. Well, the developer for this one was Drinkbox Studios. They released the Guacamelee series as well, and it was originally released in January 2022. Well, next up we got a very special game, and this one is Outer Wilds. So Outer Wilds offers up mystery, wonder and motivation to explore multiple worlds. It's also just a nice place to simply hang out and look around and enjoy your time. You can gaze out into space or check out the beautiful sunset on a local planet. But for the more adventurous, you can check out the caves on a local moon with just your torch. Now, this game has something for everybody. It's full of mystery, it's full of puzzles, and your hand is not held at all. The aesthetic of the game is quite cartoony, it's vibrant and friendly, which all adds up to the pleasant experience. So the Outer Wilds was a big surprise to me when it came out in 2019. It felt like this game came out of nowhere. So if you like exploration and discovering clues, and you want to piece them back together for a little space escapism, then this one might be the game for you. I would recommend going into this game blind. You know, it may not play like The Legend of Zelda, but it expertly delivers that sense of wonder, and you'll remember the first time you played through Outer Wilds forever. Well, the game was developed by Mobius Digital, and it was originally released in May 2019. Well, next up we've got Tunic. This one is an isometric Zelda Souls mashup. You've got plenty of exploration, puzzles, and surprisingly tough boss battles. So when you first start out in Tunic, you don't really have much. You're a cute little fox, but surrounded by a whole load of danger. And as the little fox, you can run, dash, and dodge. All the standard actions of a hero in an action adventure just like this. And there's one thing missing though, you don't have a weapon yet. Thankfully it doesn't really last too long, as you get a trusty stick to whack enemies with early on in the game. Well, one surprise about Tunic to me is the amount of secrets in the game. They are jam-packed in. The game is absolutely full of them, and much like Legend of Zelda games that inspired this game, or specifically the Legend of Zelda on the NES. Now you've got hidden chests, items that are strategically placed on the map that seem just out of reach. Now you've got pages from a manual dotted all around the map. You can piece together that game manual in the game and view it in the game. It's really good. You know, similar to the original Legend of Zelda, which also didn't hold your hand in the slightest. You have to just test things out. For example, whack things with your sword just to test them out. So in the original Legend of Zelda on the NES, you know, you've got candles which would burn down bushes, or you'd have to use bombs on walls with no indication to where actually to put the bomb. So this game is very similar. You have to stress test various items and locations in the game to uncover all the secrets. So as to whether this is going to be for everyone, that is kind of yet to be seen. You know, it's got a similar feel to Souls games as well. We have to unlock shortcuts and secrets through trial and error. Well, Tunic is a really good game, one that you should definitely be checking out. It's not easy, it's going to try your patience at times, but ultimately it is a very satisfying game. You can explore for hours finding all the secrets, or you can challenge yourself against the latest boss. You know, it's cute on the surface, but Tunic has a real tough interior when you scratch below the surface. I thoroughly recommend it. Well, the developer was Andrew Shouldice, and it was originally released in March of 2022. Well, we've come to my final recommendation now, and this is my top recommendation. This one is Elden Ring. Elden Ring is arguably one of the best games of the last 5 years, taking that open world to the next level, adapting the Souls-like gameplay to a massive, open, flexible environment. You know, it was many people's and outlets' Game of the Year in 2022. You know, I learned very early on you have to plan and prepare for battles. Just going in there and trying to take on multiple enemies at the same time is a really quick way to die. You know, in the very starting part of the game, you've got the Gatefront Ruins, and it's a good little microcosm of Elden Ring. There's roughly 10 or 12 enemies here, with a powerful enemy patrolling in the middle. If you are a skilled player, you can probably roll in there, parry, dodge, take them out pretty quickly. But for me, I had to sneak in, take enemies out individually, either by drawing them out one by one, or sneaking up behind them and stabbing them in the back. Once you've removed that danger, there's some caves to explore and loot to acquire. The scale and the scope of this game amazes me every time I open it up for a session. Now, given the lack of direction you are given, it's up to you to make your own quest log and define your own experience. For some players, this has meant keeping notes in a real notepad on their desk while they play, or you can also keep digital notes on your phone as well, which I would recommend, given you can search for keywords, plus the naming convention in Elden Ring means a few similar sounding names. So you've got a good chance you're going to speak to one character, forget about them as you move on to your next location. There's no in-game quest log to keep track of all these things. You know, from a discovery point of view, this can be a blessing and also a curse as well. So, while on the other hand, if you're someone who gets overwhelmed by choice, this system may not gel with you at all. But overall, Elden Ring is absolutely fantastic, and truly, this is a game that only really comes around once every 10 years or so, so I definitely recommend playing it. Well, that is it for my recommendations, but I did put a call out to you, the Triforce Times community, earlier on this week, and I asked you for your recommendations as well. So let's go into those recommendations now. So Kevin Matter says, just started playing Tunic. It definitely reminds me of Link's Awakening so far. Thank you, Kevin. Tunic is on the list, but that is a great recommendation. We got VazCorReal5607. So VazCorReal says, Fallout 4 takes some inspiration from early Zelda games. I just finished it and saw a lot of references. So that was one I didn't think of, Fallout 4. Well, thank you for that one. Really appreciate the recommendation. Next up, we've got Jason LJ, and Jason says there's a game called Hob that I played once. It reminds me a little of past Zelda games. So I've heard of Hob, but I haven't played it myself. I'm definitely going to add that to my games to playlist or my backlog. Mark Hart says Tunic. I heard it's like a Legend of Zelda game. You play as a fox and the game has its own language. I watched a trailer of it before. Also, Oceanhorn, that is another recommendation. So thank you, Mark Hart. That is really appreciated. Jaden Bar 1047 says Immortals Fenyx Rising. My dad loves that game because it's a lot like Breath of the Wild with shrines and puzzles. Thank you for that recommendation there. That is on the list. And then European Apple 755 says Elden Ring. And as we saw, that was the final one on the recommendation list today. So thank you for that, European Apple. Really appreciated. Well, let me know in the comments what you think about those recommendations and share your recommendations for games similar to The Legend of Zelda. And we can build up a nice backlog of games to play while we wait for the next Legend of Zelda game. Well, as always, thank you so much for watching or for listening. Don't forget you can hit that subscribe button down below. Really helps me out on the channel here. You can also hit that like button too. And if you like Triforce Times content, don't forget you can become a channel member. So hit that join button down below for more information. Well, thanks again, and I'll see you very soon.